All right, thank you for your patience. I think we're going to go ahead and get started right now. So thank you for coming out to today's Intro to FastAPI workshop, hosted by Hack at UCI. My name is Rue. I'm one of the organizers of the hack. And I want to preface this by saying that FastAPI is used for a lot of web development, but me personally, I'm not a web developer. I'm actually a big ML and AI person. So why would I be doing this workshop? Well, it's because FastAPI is meant to be for beginners and those like not really beginners, but those like little to know front end or like just general website building experience. So it's perfect for those of you who are just starting out, perfect for those of you who are also, deep into web dev and just want a new alternative to making good backends for your sites. So yeah, let's just jump right into things. Hello. First of all, what is FastAPI? FastAPI is one of the more modern and fast web frameworks that exist out there. And like the name suggests, it builds API endpoints. It's a great way for you to build up your own API to use in your applications and have quick access to the data you need. And these days, it's pretty much used in a lot of places in the industry, such as names like Uber, Netflix, Microsoft, and more. So if they're using it, maybe we should try it too. Who knows? But what makes FastAPI kind of good? Well, one big thing is that most of it is just basic Python. And if you go through the UCI CS courses, one of the first things you learn is how to become a master at Python. So hopefully this is like not hard prerequisite for most of you. Next, it also uses type checking, which isn't present in alternatives like if you've heard of Flask or Django. And this helps to reduce any sort of human error that might occur when you're making your APIs. Next, it reduces code duplication. What does that mean? Let's say you're working on your application, and over time, it gets a lot more bigger and better, and you start, redo your code a bit more to kind of handle that increase in size. Or maybe you want to start working on a mobile version of your web. Then in some cases, you need to start working on new frameworks or new designs for your code. And that can be a lot more time consuming than just accessing the API to get all the information. So by using an API as your endpoint to get information for the web app, you're able to reduce the amount of time to duplicate that code or redo it. Another big point, like I said, I'm an ML person, and if I want to integrate my ML models into a sort of front-end site or whatever, then this is a perfect way to do that, because with the Python backend, it's pretty easy to just implement ML models and have them working on whatever front-end site you're using. And there's many more reasons that people love FastAPI, but I'm not going to get too much of those. What I'm going to get into is how to use FastAPI. How are we going to do that? Today, we're going to be using FastAPI to build a basic Pokemon team builder. I think it's kind of fun, and PokeAPI is one of my favorite APIs to use because it's free. So today, we'll build an application that can take a user's input on our front-end page to get specific Pokemon, and it'll give back information about the Pokemon, display that info to the user, and also allow the user to add it to a roster that will be saved in memory or in the code. Does that sound good? And if you want to follow along, please do so. If you don't want to though, that's okay. You can just watch us struggle at coding for an hour or two. Cool. So some quick prerequisites if you want to follow along. First of all, like I said earlier, Python experience. If you're from UCI, hopefully you have some of that by now. Just any I studied one should be enough. And another thing I have is for you to follow along if you want to take time to do that. It's this link over here, tinyurl.com/vh24 FastAPI. I built some story code there. I'm going through downloading it and using that to build our final application. So I'll give it like a minute or two to people that just or maybe just access that if you want to. Feel free to follow along, take some. If anyone has any issues like what's it called, cloning a repo from GitHub and all, let me know. That's kind of important for following along with the code. Give it about a minute or so, or no, just a few seconds or so. Cool. At any point if you need to go back a slide, just let me know. Now, the first thing we're going to do is set up a virtual environment. So let me quickly, it's not required, but I personally recommend it. So let me quickly get to my code over here. I've already done that, but what you do is you just type in python-m, v, and then whatever you want to name your environment. So we go ahead and do that. Where's my code? Y'all can see that, yeah? Perfect. So I would go ahead and just put this in to build a virtual environment. I've already done that, but you should all take time to do that yourself as well. I'll give it a few seconds for you to type in this and build your virtual environment. I'll ask for a move on, by the way, so take your time. Does anyone want me to not go on it, or are we good? Sick. All right, after you build your virtual environment, you want to activate it. If you're on a Windows computer, you can use this string over here to activate your virtual environment. Or if you're on a Mac OS or Linux computer, you can use this string over here. Yeah, what's up? Oh, all good, all good. The last step is actually this string up here. Yeah, so feel free to do that. Okay, have you been able to download the repo yet? Gotcha, yeah, just type in that line over there. Yeah, I'll give it like a minute or so to get through these things. Like waiting list or something. Yes, I can. 1 second. One second. Where's workshops? All right, there you go. It should look fine in the workshops channel now if you want to follow along with the instructions there. Is anyone still in the step of setting up the virtual environment? Go on. Oh yeah, what's up? Now, someone didn't go check it out, that'd be fine, but I'm gonna go for now. I have to check out my later for sure. Sorry about that. All right. Is that what's the issue or? All right. Cool. Next thing we want to do then is install some packages. So when you're inside that directory, I want you to run pip install -r and requirements.txt. This is going to install 3 packages inside our environment. It'll install FastAPI, of course, which is what we're using to build these endpoints. What else is there? Unicorn, which is something we can use to host a server that will run the API. And then it'll be using, what's it called? HTTPX for handling some requests to API as well. So I'll give you guys another few seconds to do that, if you're able to. It should be simple, but if there's any issues, let me know. As always, in hackathon things tend to go wrong when it's expected. Cool. Is anyone still on this step, or are we good to move on for those who are following along? All right. Now, at this point, you should have the starter code downloaded and you should have all the packages installed. So let's go ahead and take a look at what exactly is in our starter code that I whipped up today. Okay. So in the starter code over here, we have really 2 main files we're going to pay attention to. One over here is this index file, which is just a basic HTML page I created for the sake of our work today. It has a little bit of JavaScript code over here for interacting with our API. Don't worry about that for now. And then it has basic over here page, basic HTML. You see a header over here. It's going to be our Pokemon team builder. A couple cards here. If you're not familiar, I use Bootstrap as well, just to make things a little bit nicer to look at, but not that nice. So all good. We'll take a look at that later. And then we have also here our main.py here. This is where all the magic happens with FastAPI. So as you can see here, we have some imports over here. We're creating an instance of the app by doing app equals FastAPI. This is how we'll get into a bit more later. So this is what we're working with these 2 files here. And the other thing we're going to work with today is the Poke API, which is a free API that just gives a bunch of different Pokemon information as needed. So for example, if I were to, I'm going to go over here actually. If I'm to ask for ditto, I'd get this information back here. Look at all this information we get to manage things like abilities, forms, whatever. A lot of useful information we can use for our app. Cool. So with all these files, we all seen that. Next up we can do is see how the code works so far. So once you have everything loaded on a computer and set up like we did earlier, what you want to run is this line over here, unicorn space main app dash dash, that should be dash dash reload. And I'll show you that in a second. Oh. So I'm running this over here. And this one's going to start our FastAPI server and see what we got working so far. So just click that. And we should have the server running on this link over here. So let's go check that out. And so what it loads. That's what you mostly should see. Is anyone able to get to the step? Or sorry, not able to get to the step? It's a very basic page so far. This isn't a web dev thing. We're not going to be like doing fancy styling. We're just doing pure functionality. Is anyone having issues loading this up, or we all got it? Awesome. I didn't think we'd get to this stage. That's good to hear. So as you can see here, we have this basic layout we're going to have where we can search up a Pokemon's name. It'll show up with an image, and we can add it to our team over here. Cool. So with this in mind, now we have kind of most of the setup ready. Let's just dive into actually using FastAPI. And basically, this is a section of the workshop where you're going to see me struggle, maybe code and struggle for a bit. And yeah, but it'll work out in the end. So 1 second. All right. So let me attach this here so I can code. Right now, isn't good. Okay. So right now on our page here, we have the functionality to kind of just like type in whatever we want for searching Pokemon's name. And we have some buttons here that don't really do anything yet. Like if I type in Pikachu, it doesn't really do anything right now. And I can't really add anything to like my team slots here either. So we need to go ahead and build a functionality. So over here, we have one of like the first pages you could say that we'd use FastAPI for. This is on the base page, as you can see. And this is what's loading in our static HTML over here. We're responding back. When the user accesses the main page, responding back with this HTML page here. But this is what happens when we load the initial link here. But now we want to make more calls that our app can make to FastAPI to get more information. So what kind of functionalities do we need to build then? Let's start with maybe getting information that we want to populate our site with, right? So let's call this getting Pokemon info. That's not how you spell it, but yeah. And we can do this, we just name anything arbitrary. I'll name it a Pokemon for now. And the response I want to probably plan back, instead of giving back HTML content, I'm probably going to send back information. So for that, we're going to use the JSON response. That's usually a good method for sending back information to sites and all. And we'll name our function over here, instead of get HTML, let's all get Pokemon. Cool. And like I said before, we're going to use kind of a JSON format for sending and receiving data. So why don't we have that be a parameter here for passing through? JSON is pretty like adjacent to being a dict in Python, so we just use that data type for now. All right, now what's our plan over here? See this function we built over here on the index? This is a bit of a JavaScript stuff. What's going to happen is we want it to be where once we type in a name here, if you click search, we should be able to fill it with information about the Pokemon, right? That makes sense. So how are we going to do that? When we click, the button that was up there is over here, the search button. And what we want to happen is that when we click this button, it's going to call this fetch Pokemon function. And this fetch Pokemon function is going to send that information over to FastAPI of what we're trying to find. So far what's happening is the function here is getting what we typed inside the input box, because the input box, right, is called Pokemon name. So we're getting the element inside Pokemon name, the value there. And then we're going to package it up this way to send over to this, remember this, what's called route that we set up over here in the main function. So we want to fetch information from this by sending the information we have here. So what happens there is we're sending that over here. And this function is supposed to receive it. Let's actually get rid of this for a second. So this is supposed to receive this. Let's go set up that implementation right now. So what I want to do first is, let's just, for the sake of testing, see what our input is whenever we get this. So let's do, this will be for like debugging purposes, just make sure we like getting what we need to get. We'll use that later. And then what we're receiving, like I said, from here is the input in the box, which is going to be the Pokemon name. So let's just set up a variable for that. Pokemon name, the data we're getting, and from there we're doing dot get. This is a function, it's a dictionary, and we're looking for the name, which if you look over here is something that we set up. What's it called? That we're sending over here, the name. So we're gonna set up get the name, and we can lowercase that for now just to avoid like any complications that happen from like different casing and stuff. So let's do that function. Cool. Is everyone following so far? At any point, because I'm gonna kind of like get locked in a bit and start coding. So if you, and it needs to like slow down at any point or get confused, feel just like yell or just say something like looking down, doing like CS posture. Cool. So now that we've kind of received the data from the input over here from the front end, we're going to do stuff with it. So first, I want to use the stuff we're going to do is we're going to send that name over to the Pokemon API to get the information we need. In order to do that, we need to connect to the Pokemon API. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use the HTTPX import over here. There's other ways to access APIs and all, but this is one of the more, I guess, ones that I'm used to personally. I think works pretty well. So over here, we're going to do this over here, async with HTTPX, async client. And from there, what I want to do is get ready to get a response from the API when we send everything that we need. So now we're going to do, let's see, await. This helps us wait for the response. Client meaning the API dot get. And what we're sending over here is going to be, how do we access this? 1 second. So over here is where we're going to put in the link to access the API we want, which is Poke API. Let's quickly get that link over here again. And as you can see here, this is the format they kind of ask for you to input things to the API in. So we're just going to copy that. And instead of ditto, we'll put in the Pokemon name that we're actually looking for. Let's do that. Oh, cool. And that's going to get us the information back from, ideally, the information back from the API. So now response is what we get from the API. And in the event that the response status code is 200, 200, that means everything worked out pretty well. And we're going to get some information from the API. So let's do, we can call Pokemon data. Data to response.json. All responses used from APIs, or most responses tend to be in JSON format, so we're going to do that. And we should have all the information we need, right? So let's return, let's think about this. We want to return our own JSON format to the other end, the HTML. So what kind of information do we need again? Let's see. We're planning to show off, 1 second. I guess I haven't decided that yet, huh? What kind of information do we want to take? Let's see what's in the API. There's a lot of information we could, honestly, there's so much information we could choose from. It's kind of overwhelming. Let's do some basic things like name. Okay, we'll do name, wait, they have that, right? Do they have that? They have that. Do they have images? Okay, they do have images, sick. So let's use those then. So I'm gonna want to collect the name, weight, height, and image of the Pokemon for the sake of demonstration. So let's do, in this object we return, let's do name. Is going to be then from the Pokemon data. The way we can access it, since it's a JSON format, is we do the square brackets here, kind of like a dictionary, or exactly like a dictionary, and we're going to look for name. And we'll do the same thing. Let's do height. And what else can we look for? I think I said weight, right? Yes. And I said we're going to access image URL. How do we access that? Sprites are through sprites. Then, oh, there's so many options. Let's do official. Sprites, official artwork, front default. So that's going to be over here. Sprites, there's going to be a few axes here. Yeah. 1 second. Sprites. Wait, no, don't check real quick. Sprites, other, that's what it is. Other official artwork, and then front default. If you take the time to look through what you get as a response from the API, you can really do any information you want, but this is what I'm doing for the sake of demonstration today. But feel free to play around with it. Other, the new official artwork, and front default. Cool. And this is the information sent back now to our main thing here, the index here. So we're going to be returning back based on response from the API, the name of the Pokemon, the height, the weight, that's the weight, and the sprite URL or image URL. Cool. Has anyone kind of followed through if you're following through so far? Sick. Now, in the event that this does not work out, we don't get 200 code, let's also get some error handling ready just in case. So let's do like an else statement. And we can just do return an error object. Let's just do error Pokemon found. Just for the sake of being good coders who manage our errors. Okay, cool. That should work out. Actually, I don't need else statement should have regardless. Nice. So that's it now for this function over here. Now we have this function ready for getting Pokemon info. Let's go back to our index here. And what we're going to get back is this, in this result is the object that we're sending over here, which is this JSON object with the name, height, weight, and image. So now we just have to manage this object itself. So we can do that is once we get this result here, in the event that the result gives us the error object, we just have to manage that. So let's do if the JavaScript, I have to remember the syntax, result dot error. In the event that we get an error, we should handle that by doing document dot get ID. And to be we have an object here result. We want to populate that with error. Let's say result dot inner text to edit the text of that. Result dot the error message we got. Cool. And so we're able to like edit objects inside the HTML. This isn't really a big HTML lesson. This is mostly a FastAPI lesson, but just keep that in mind. Do that, and then in case there's not an error, then we can start populating the information we need. So let's do, let's think about it. Document, let's populate the image, for example. Let's do our image over here. It has the ID Pokemon image. Let's use that. Document get by ID. We'll put that there. And we'll set its source, image source, to whatever we got from results dot image URL, which is what we named the object over here that we were returning. So in theory, we'll do the rest of it later, but in theory, this should populate the image, right? For the sake of sanity, let's test that out. Okay. So there's our app. So now, theoretically, if I enter in a name, like let's say Pikachu, it should give me the image. Should give me the image. What happened? What went wrong? Method not allowed. Method not allowed. That means something happened here. Yes, name. 1 second. Technical difficulties. This happens in hackathons. Okay, 1 second. Where's the error here? Image, alt. It looks like over here, it's not even getting into this function here because we're not getting the printout data. That's interesting. Okay. For the sake of demonstration, I'm gonna get some working code I had from earlier and put it in here. It's pretty much identical. Yeah. Try this one more time. Thank you for being patient. Appreciate it. Okay. Interesting. So over here we got input is working, and we got an okay. The input was Pikachu. We got that. 200 okay. Let's try something an issue over here. Result. Oh, I see the issue. I named it wrong. That's crazy. All right, let's give that another shot. Double check my code one more time. Fetch name, class results, ID, result, text, error, false, document.getID, image.source equal to result.image. Okay. Hopefully source again this time. If not, that'll be a bit embarrassing. Okay, there we go. The issue is just me doing a typo on one variable. I'm sure some of you have had the same issue like that in the past, but it's okay. We got through it. So this is good. This means we're getting the information we need back from the API, and we're able to load this random image from the public API on the internet, and all using the FastAPI background to kind of do all the backend information. That's great. Now that we know that's working, let's get the rest of the information in there. For example, we need to display the name, weight, and height that we collected. I'm going to do kind of like, what's it called? An F string like in Python, but the equivalent of that in JavaScript real quick, just to get an easy way to condense all the information together. Let's do Pokemon details, and I'll make that be, if you use like this key that's underneath the escape key, you can make like an F string in JavaScript. So I'll do like name, and I'll do $sign this, and the variable is our object result dot, what's the object name? We named it name. Do that. Let's do height is same style here. Result dot height, and then of course weight. $sign this result dot weight. Okay, good, I can spell. Sick. And now we have that string made. We can now present it by using the same logic here. Document.getElement by ID. And we're going to be using that information probably, let's see. Let's put that in the text area. Result. So we'll use ID result. And we will set that to be, instead of this, we'll have it be Pokemon details, which is what the string we just made. Sick. Now, hopefully this should load the Pokemon details again. Or it should load Pokemon details now. Let's do a different one. I think it's what, right? Oh, did I not save? 1 second. What's there here? Let's wait. Name, results of name. Oh, I see. It says source over here, but we're not changing source. We're saying the inner text. That's the issue. Okay, there we go. Now, we can also use the number. That's how the API works. Sick, there we go. Now we got the details over here as well. So we successfully piped in information from the API and put it on our front end screen here using some backend management with Python. That's cool and all. How's everyone doing so far if you're following along? If you're following along, I'm impressed and thank you so much for sticking around. But if not, it's all good because there's some error handling that happened. Are there any questions so far about just like piping things through a FastAPI before I move on? Still with me? All right, sick. So, like I said, we successfully piped in information from a public API and use FastAPI to kind of manage it and put it on our front end. But to be honest, you can kind of do that with like any API call you do in any program. So let's do some more complicated stuff with FastAPI. You see these button things over here? It's kind of like the team selection thing. Because remember, this is a team builder. So I want to be able to add them into my team. So how can we do that? We probably need another function for that. So ideally, the logic is going to happen is I have Pokemon over here, and I want to add to my team. So I would click add, hopefully, and it should get added there once we finish building things. So with that in mind, how are we going to do that here? Well, we should probably make another onClick function that's going to take that information and put it inside our little like containers down there. So let's go for another function there. We could do another kind of route for that. So instead of getting Pokemon info, we should get ready to add it. Let's call it add Pokemon info here. And instead of using the Pokemon route, I'll probably use, let's call it just add. And it'll again be just a basic JSON response. So let's rename it here to add. And actually, let's also over here, get ready to make another function because I'm going to want to have this function be used on buttons here to send the information over FastAPI. So I can just copy most of this. Let's copy this function over here. And we'll just do that. I'll close this for the sake of reading. Cool. Let's call this just, I don't know, add Pokemon, or what do I want to call it? Yeah, I'm going to do add Pokemon. Cool. So ideally what's going to happen is we're going to click this, and it's going to tell FastAPI we want to save this inside our team. But if we want to save it, we probably want to have over here a way to save it in the code. So let's maybe make, I don't know, we can store it in like a dictionary. Let's do that. Team is equal to, and I'll do like slot. We had 3 slots on the page. So I'll do slot 1, to none for now, 2, and 3. I can't spell. 3 is also none. So this is going to be our little container here that we're going to be using to kind of store information and keep it with us over time while we use the application. All right, cool. Now, I think we can honestly use the same input that we used for last function, where we get just the basic name of the Pokemon, and we use that to call the API, get the information we need, like the what's called the image and the name itself, and just store that inside our little function, our little dictionary over here on the Python side. So why don't we use that logic? So we're going to still over here get data from dictionary, but I think in order to know where I should put it in here, I'm going to have another input, like let's say what slot to know which button I clicked. So let's do, I'll just call that, I don't know, item ID. And the way you can actually pass this in is when you call this over here, this route, we can have another parameter here that we can pass in, and we'll call that item ID. That way on the HTML side later, when we call the function, we can like put on top of like the route name we're calling a number at the end, and we use that number to like specify which space. We basically pass that as like a parameter into the FastAPI side. So we'll do that here for now. And then we can keep calling our input here just for the sake of debugging purposes to know things are working. Same logic, we lower the name, get the response from JSON, everything's sick. I think the only difference in this function now is going to be what we return. It's going to be a different format because in order to populate these three things here, I kind of want to send that dictionary I made, the team dictionary, over to the what's it called, the HTML side, so that they can use that dictionary to populate it. So in order to send it over, why don't we, first of all, for the sake of that too, the team thing, we don't really need weight and height. We kind of just need like the name and maybe a picture. So we can get rid of this information over here. We only want to return name and image URL. And instead of returning this thing itself, we want to return the entire team dictionary, right? So I would say team is equal to, and also on top of team, let's do the team item ID to make sure we're in the correct location. We set team item ID, that part, equal to this object we want to have. And then to send this entire object, we'll just return the team thing. So let's do that, return team. And there we go. Now we're sending this entire slot over to the HTML side. So we'll come back to this later, but hopefully that works. How are we doing so far on sending over the team dictionary? Yeah, good, following along? Great. So now, assuming that that's sent through properly, we want to manage this function over here to handle that new object. So what we're going to do is, one second. This stuff should all stay the same, and now we just have to work on what we do with the result. If the result's an error, handle it the same way. But now, in the event that we get this object back, remember the format of the object is going to be the dictionary number and then kind of just the name and the image. So what we can do is, we don't really need to append anything with text this time, so we can get rid of this line. We should access, let's see. We want to edit the image and the name of this card here when we click add. So why don't we, what's the ID of that? The ID of the card, or for example here, is card image 1. So we want to change card image 1, right? Let's do that here. Card image 1, we'll change it with the results, and the results in the correct, what's it called? Oh, I'm sorry, we actually need to figure out how to access the specific ID we want to use, right? If we want to use ID 1, 2, or 3. So why don't we put that as a parameter in here? We can do, let's call it just ID straight up. Okay, that makes things easier. And also remember, like I said, we need to be able to add that in our request. So we're going to be request, and it's going to be request slash ID. See, this request here is what we told it to look for over here. Remember, add an item ID, which we're passing as a parameter. That's what we're going to be sending over in this part here. So make sure to change this fetch over here, where it says add, and we're going to have the ID at the end. Now we'll use the ID over here as well to kind of get the correct information we want. So we want results in the ID section of that results. Remember, let's say if ID is 1, we want to access item 1, and we want to access the image URL there. So let's do that. And also while we're at it, why don't we also do the text? So we'll do the ID for the text section is Pokemon card 1 text. And let's put that over here as well. Inner text should be changed to, and then we access the result page, result ID. And this time we're going to be doing name instead of the image URL. All right, cool. So this should work for the most part. Now we just need to associate this function with the add button. So let's take this function and let's do an on-click feature here. Perfect. On-click, we should add Pokemon, and we should do it for the 1 slot. All right. Now it's the part where we cross our fingers and pray it worked out. So if I do a new Pokemon loaded, search that, we got Charmander here, and hopefully when I click add 1 here, the function we've done so far should add it in there. It did not. Let's see what happened. It went through. Everything's okay there. Let's see the issue again. It's probably some small debugging issue. Image 1, source, results. 1 second. IDs there. Oh, I see. I had to add Pokemon to the wrong. I added to the wrong area. That's why. We need to add in the card. So let's put it over here. We click add in the card, and it's going to now hopefully work out. Let's try it again. Let's do a different Pokemon. How about Garchomp? We'll add this. And there we go. As you can see, it got added into our team here. We got the information needed, we got the image, and we got the name. So let's try for this one too. Oh, shoot. We didn't finish implementing this yet. Right now it works for just this one because I kind of hard-coded in here, just adding one. And what happens is over here, it's only adding it to the item that has its ID. Now I could just copy paste it to have it see like the same thing, but with card 2 and card 3. But let's make it a bit more, I guess, reusable. So instead, I'm gonna remember that F string we did earlier. What I'm gonna do is implement F string here as well with a special key or a special character. And then what's the ID we're using? We're using ID. Hopefully that should make it a bit more usable for us. So now, regardless of ID, it should update it properly. So that should fix that. And then, of course, we need to add this function into every single one of those cards. So we go over here, and I should go to every single on-click. On-click for this card, but it'll be card 2, and on-click for this card, but it will be 3. Oh, that's not a 3, that's a 2. Okay, cool. That should hopefully be a quick fix to help us add to everything here. So now let's try it again. If I get 1, we add it here, it works. Now let's try a different one. Let's try 4, and we click add. Hey, there we go. Now it works in whatever we want. Now let's try one more. What number is it? 6, 7. And if we click this over here, awesome, there we go. And there we go, we got a nice working team builder. It is not the most prettiest item there, but it does go to show how we're able to use FastAPI, do these calculations here. Normally it'd be pretty tricky to kind of like, store information like this on a larger application, but using FastAPI with Python, we're able to do easy manipulations kind of like that. Does anyone have any questions so far before I move on, just like kind of wrap things up? Do we all understand how we got here? Awesome, I'm glad you guys understood that part. Yeah, as you can see here, we actually didn't write that much code either to get all this functionality on like, if you ignore how ugly this like kind of looks right now, it's pretty basic. It gets a lot of functionality kind of done and usable right now for a front-end user to do, which is kind of cool. So we didn't even write that much code either. This is sub 50 lines, and that's including all my spaces and stuff too. So that's crazy. But yes, hopefully you enjoyed seeing how we use FastAPI, but it's a pretty useful application. This is a very small application, FastAPI also. There's many more things you could do. Like I said, I personally use FastAPI for demonstrating machine learning models on front-end sites because Python, best way to do that. And I'm sure you can discover many other ways to use FastAPI to kind of quickly access information and use it in your front-end application, especially if you have a Python background. Before I move on, I guess I'll say, this is kind of it wrapping up FastAPI. Even though it's called FastAPI, I know it took some time and it was not that fast, but thank you for bearing with me. And if there are any more questions, I can go on to kind of the raffle part of this workshop. Heather, are you managing this? I don't have the form access. All right, whatever. Anyways, feel free to scan in this QR code here to check in so you came to my workshop and you listened to FastAPI. And what happened is we get scanned in for a raffle. What is the raffle for? A t-shirt. Oh, that's sick. I love t-shirts. I use them every day. So, so if you ever scan that, and we'll set up the raffle part at this point. Once again, thank you for listening about FastAPI and just hearing me ramble and stuff. I kind of built this all last second, not because I'm procrastinating, but just to show like how quickly you can make things with FastAPI. That's definitely the reason why. So you able to get it? Okay. I'll keep the form open for like probably 10 or 15 more seconds, and then we can go for it. Thank you, Jacqueline. All right. Cool. I will now move on to Taste Enter. He's not eligible to win. What have you done? I entered the thing earlier, and then Arnav took my name out, so he's not eligible. It's to take out Taste and Alicia and Riley. Fine. Let him. No, all right, fine. No, okay, fine. We kept you. All right, we're gonna spin it now. Oh, you guys trust us, right? Oh, I was a no. All right, and the winner of this is
Oh my God,
Maggie?
Thank you. Okay.
Congrats, Maggie. All right. And yeah, that's kind of it for this workshop. Thank you all so much for listening in, and good luck with us your hackathon. It's pretty late probably at this point to implement FastAPI in your project, but if you have any questions about it later or just anything with your project, feel free to let me know. I'll be here for most of the hackathon. Yeah. All right. Good luck with VenusHacks, everyone. Happy hacking.